welcome to another edition of Unplugged, a conventional edition this week. We had a crack at our live broadcast, which we think went pretty well. The game didn't, but the broadcast, I think, went pretty well in the Geelong clash on Monday night. So we've got a little bit more of a break this time, a 6-day break between matches before we take on Essendon on Sunday. So reverting back to normal, plenty of special guests to come over coming weeks, both from the modern day and digging back a little bit in time for those perhaps a little bit older or wanting the nostalgic aspect of it. But we'll be having a fan focus tonight as well with a former Australian star, over 100 appearances for Australia at international level in David Hussey, also captained Victoria and is the coach of the Melbourne Stars. So he'll join us a little bit later on to talk about his love of the Saints, and there's plenty of that within the Victorian cricket team. But first loss, unfortunately, after 4 wins in a row for the Saints last Monday, and disappointing, I guess, in the manner with which it happened. It was fairly competitive early and then fell over late, but at 7-4, fifth on the table coming into the round, and the round started on a Thursday, which is unusual, and finished on a Wednesday. But we build towards Essendon this week. And Nick, as we welcome you, it was obviously great to experiment with the live broadcast. Unfortunately, the game didn't quite match up to that.
Yeah, live was fun. Got off to a bit of a dodgy start. We couldn't quite get it working in time, but we got there in the end. Little less, I guess, production quality. We can't edit out our bloopers if we make any when we're live. But back to recorded, which is nice and safe, I guess. But yeah, it was disappointing. I've had a few days to think about it, and 6-day break feels like a lifetime now after the 3.5 days we had before the last game. But I guess that night I was really disappointed. Had some time to think about it, and really, I'm not that fussed about it, to be honest. We genuinely looked like we were running in concrete boots. We were buggered. We had no power, had no strength, had no running capacity. I don't even think, looking back on it, that we weren't trying. I think we were trying. We just had nothing in the tank and had no legs, couldn't run, couldn't jump, couldn't push, couldn't mark, couldn't kick. We literally could not do anything. And it showed. And you're talking about a team that had, 11 guys that have played less than 50 games up against a team that had 13 or something that had played over 150. There's a massive gulf in experience and years and years of miles and gas in the tank that they really should have done what they did against us, and probably could have been even worse, to be honest. But there are a couple of guys that stood out. Obviously, young Bytel was a standout. He looked really good. Looking forward to seeing him play a lot more games. Had an interesting debate with someone who had a better debut, Bytel or Luke Dunstan. And I lean towards Bytel. Dunstan had a great debut and hasn't necessarily had the runs on the board since then consistently. But Bytel, I think, looked a more natural footballer. Didn't quite have the stats of Dunstan's first game, but just Bytel looks a natural footballer and looked like he'd been there for years. Just fit in seamlessly, knew exactly what he was doing, where he had to run, where to kick to, where the clearance was going to be, where the ball was going to bounce. Just fitted in perfectly, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him play for a long time.
Absolutely. You see a lot of rookies out there in their first game, second game, third game, and they look small. He did not look small. That's the thing. He looked imposing. There was strength. There was the ability to knock someone out of the way to get the ball himself.
There's a character about him or something. He's imposing.
Yeah. Couple of years' time, he could be pretty scary. We're seeing this big midfielder as the new thing coming through with a lot of teams now, and he could be the one that does it for us.
It's always good to see that number running around too.
Yeah. Well, I was saying, I think it was the first time it's been on a player under 195 centimetres or something for 25, 30 years or something now. So it's a bit of a different spot for the position, not sitting in the goal square of centre half forward. So, but yeah, it was a very bright beacon on a dull night, that one. So hopefully, keep him in for the rest of the year, I think, as long as he's not getting overloaded, I guess, and hopefully big things to come.
Yeah, agree with the sentiment on the contest too. That I thought the alarm bells were a little bit there the week before against the Gold Coast with some of those concrete legs, and they weren't quite exploding away from contest, and they did pretty well to hang on and win that game. But obviously then to have a 4-day break out of that, and of course Geelong are a quality outfit that may have beaten us in any case, given their experience, and they're obviously right in the frame to win a flag. As Brett Ratten said, I think the disappointing aspect is the manner that it got away. Obviously not kicking a goal in the second half. It was a loss at three-quarter time. I was thinking percentage-wise it'd be good to lose by 30 as opposed to 60, but obviously it crept out the way it did. But just got to guard against that. Obviously the Collingwood game got away from them, and this game got away from them in completely different circumstances. But yeah, I mean, apart from Vital, the other positive, I thought Ben Long was pretty solid in his comeback from suspension. He did some pretty good things, and the ultimate downside was obviously losing Jay Gresham potentially for the remainder of the season with stress fractures in the back. And I guess when you hear stress fractures and you hear multiple games in a short period of time, you probably start to worry about things like that, those sorts of injuries occurring to players.
It does. It makes you wonder kind of how he was feeling before this game, because stress fractures don't just happen overnight. They take a while. I've had them in my back, and they're not fun. But they're not something that kind of you wake up in the morning and go, shit, my back hurts. I better go get it checked out. It's something that it's a gradual kind of decline or increase in pain, I guess, over a period of time. So you wonder kind of, did they talk about potentially resting him for the Geelong game and getting, maybe getting a Burns back in or Ross back in? I don't know how Ross is, but, I wonder if he was a candidate for rotation given, that sort of outcome. I wonder if there was potentially some better management that could have come out of the Gold Coast game. As you said, there are a few warning signs late in that game, and Gresham was one who I think he was pretty good. I think I might have had him maybe just outside the votes in that game, but he didn't have his his breakout pace, his power from the contest that we've been used to, especially in the second half. And I wonder if there were potentially some things that we could have done to manage him a bit better.
Yeah, it's if you do think if Ross had been available, whether maybe he could have been one left out. But yeah, being Geelong, you kind of look and go, well, we're probably looking at having our best available going into that game, because it's a game that you kind of don't want to go, oh, we'll rest a number of players and then it blows out further than what it actually did, because that is a big possibility of that happening.
Yeah.
If you just sort of go, no, okay, well, yeah, we'll half go into this game, that's when you really, really get hurt. And then, I mean, we got a 6-day break afterwards, so that's almost a regular week. So I think we got another of these group of games possibly coming up later. So we'll hopefully learn from what's happened in this one. Look and be able to go, okay, this is what we can do. This is the groups we can put through. This is the players that we know can handle these extra games over a short period of time. It's a learning curve for everyone at the moment.
Yeah, it is. And it was the one against Geelong. I mean, a couple of the key moments, you could probably tell pretty early that it was going to be a fairly tough day at the office in terms of the way they were moving. I mean, Zach Jones, just that sort of speed. And I guess, unfortunately for us, a lot of the players that have been injured or out of the side are similar types of players in a similar area. So we know that Dunstan and Hanbury are out for long periods of time. Although Hanbury, good news today that he's running pretty strongly again now and will return to the hub almost immediately. Jared Ruffhead expected to head up there as well, which would be good after his wife just gave birth to their child. So he's now obviously back in the hub, able to help out. But having Hanbury up and about means that he is some chance of playing again this year, which is good. Luke Dunstan probably some distance away, but obviously then having Jones out of the side and Ross out of the side meant he lost 4 guys that are pretty good on the inside of the contest, because there's a fair bet that if Dunstan was fit, he would have replaced somebody in that group. Seb Ross, if he was fit, would have come in instead of Jones. So, and obviously now we lose Gresham, but we should get Jones and Ross back, which does help offset that a little bit. But it does probably answer the selection question a fraction, but which we'll talk about a bit later on. But yeah, it was was a game that I probably thought we would lose. I was just hoping we'd lose it by a fair bit less than that because we built up a fair percentage buffer. And I think we went from 123 back to about 111 in that loss. And if you factor that in, Melbourne, I think is 109.9 or something like that. So if you look at those sides that are a game or two behind you, you probably want it to be 10 percentage points clear of them rather than 1 or 2, because a loss would obviously change that. So that was
Now we've got even more teams sitting on the half win as well. So they're kind of they're out of it now.
Gap. Yeah, we had a percentage gap on both Essendon and I think Collingwood, but obviously with the draws that they both got, that doesn't matter anymore. So it's just a case of obviously making sure
which is a good thing in a way, but in the same time,
it might hopefully mean that either 8.5 or 9.5 wins sees teams finish 8th rather than 10 wins, which might therefore help our cause. But I think the target we've got to hope for is to get to 10 and 7. If we finish 10 and 7, there's no way we miss the 8. So 3 wins, two might be enough, but 3 will definitely be enough.
I think one of the silver linings of some of the injury concerns that we've gotten to see guys like Bytel, and Burns had a taste a few weeks ago. I'd really love to see him back in the team. Obviously, fresh legs will help, and getting Ross and some of the other guys, Jones back as well, will help. But yeah, I think there's, we'll get to see these guys. I think Gresham's injury means that Bytel probably doesn't get dropped. I think he has to stay in, you'd think. I'd love to see Burns back in and get some of these young guys coming through. But yeah, look at the game against Essendon. That percentage drop that you mentioned, I think it kind of means that this Essendon game really is a must-win. We've got to keep beating teams around us on the ladder. And Essendon coming off 4 days compared to our 6, we really have to win this game if we want to be seen as a serious, legitimate finals player. And not just potentially making up the numbers.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, you've got to obviously tick the boxes to secure the spot. I wouldn't be looking at the Geelong game and saying, that St Kilda were found wanting, and it clearly means they're not good enough. I mean, yes, they've still got to rise to the challenge, and there's things they can learn from that, but I don't think that's a performance that has to define necessarily what they are as a group based on all of the circumstances. But we'll find out this week, because every time we've been challenged this year, we hit back pretty well. We got exposed badly against Collingwood and then came back and beat Richmond the following week. We had a disastrous loss against Fremantle and then won 4 in a row, including 2 in Adelaide. So now we've had a poor loss, and we play against a team that's fighting for a spot in the finals. And it's up to us to obviously get that response again this week with 2 extra days to prepare. But votes, I guess a double vote look. Out of the last 2 weeks, we in our live broadcast the other day, we didn't quite squeeze the votes in for the Gold Coast game. So we're looking at votes from last Thursday and votes from Monday.
So start with last week. Get Gold Coast. I actually think Billings was our best on. He gave us some really good use. Actually used the ball quite well. Gave us drive, and he came up with some really big possessions in really crucial times that gave us clear field in front of us, or gave us a ball that really shouldn't have been ours. So I reckon he was our best on. 2 to steal. Workman, as always. That's what he does every week. That's exactly what he's out there to do. There's nothing unusual. It's almost, put him down for votes every single week the way he's going at the moment. And I mean, it's a bit harsh, but I gave Butler 1. Great game, 4 goals. It's a huge in only a 4-point result. It was position wise, that's how he got his goals. It's quite harsh not to give him more than 1 vote, but yeah, that's the only place I felt like I could squeeze him in. Did you want to go into yours, Nick, or?
No, you can just roll into Geelong.
Go Geelong now. All right, and for against Geelong, again, Jack Steele, a bit down on his usual effort, I guess. Well, effort, I guess not, but his output. It's when the whole team's down as we were. he still stood out in the middle, giving 110% every game that he does. It just stands up there and as a leader. 2, first gamer, Vital, that huge game for a first gamer. He could have finished with 5 touches and just been that first gamer that turned up in a game where we got beaten easily and did nothing. But he threw himself at it all night and gave us good use out of the middle. But yeah, it'd be nice to see him play a game that we dominate and just see what he can do. And one I gave to, I'm just trying to remember. Ed Phillips. Started us off beautifully. He's kicked half our goals for the match, and I mean, would have been good if he could have kept going with the goal run. But yeah, I think they thought, oh, who's this? We better man up on him, and yeah, slowed it down a bit after that. But if he can give us that, he gives us that every week. Hey, there's absolutely spot in for him. He's been missing for a while, so good to see him actually have a pretty good game.
Absolutely. Nick, your double dose of votes?
Yeah, Gold Coast game, I gave 3 to Dan Butler. I think he was the standout in terms of the X factor. He was the difference maker in the game. It wasn't just the 4 goals, but also 4 tackles inside 50. His pressure was intense in the forward half of the ground and was the X factor that really won the game for us. So 3 votes for Dan Butler, 2 to Jack Steele. As always, his leadership on field was massive. He had 21 touches, 5 tackles, 7 scoring involvements. He also kicked a couple of goals and took some strong marks as well around half forward to really keep us in good field position and make sure that we had opportunities to score when we needed to. And 1 to Jack Billings, kept running, 26 touches, 5 marks, and a really important one late in the last quarter from, I think it was Hunter Clark down in the back pocket. Clark stepped around a few and kicked it up past the defensive 50, and Billings took a really strong contested mark around 60 out from the Suns goal, which was really important in allowing us to keep the ball and make sure that the Suns didn't get another shot at goal. Last week against Geelong, 3 to Jack Steele. I thought he was immense. You're right. I mean, he wasn't himself, but none of the team was. But he still had, 25 touches, couple of score involvements, and was just, was clearly our best player. In the clinches, he ran, he presented all day, all night, I should say, and just never gave up, even when the tide was turning strongly against us. 2 I gave to Ed Phillips. I think the goals were a bonus, really. I think he presented really hard. He ran really hard, both ways up and down the wing, and gave us outlet options from halfback, and was able to move the ball from defence to attack really easily and quickly for us, and was really important. Probably his best game for the club, I think, in a number of years. Jack Billings, 1 vote. I thought as well. 17 touches, kicked a goal, and again, just kept running, always presented and gave us an option on the wing or at halfback to move the ball forward. Never really gave up, and leadership-wise, I think showed his growth in that area. It's been something that I think has been a knock on him in previous years, his ability to kind of take the game and keep running and go missing in patches. I don't think he's gone missing at any point this year, so that was impressive. And honourable mention to Bytel, who's very impressive for a first gamer.
I thought of the Gold Coast game, 3 votes to Billings. My votes were the same as H's, 3 to Billings for his consistent effort over the 4 quarters. That mark he took, and that centre half-back was huge for us at that stage of the game. Gave 2 votes to Jack Steele as well. He also kicked a couple of crucial goals, one in the 3rd quarter from the intercept mark from the kick-in, and 1 vote to Dan Butler, who obviously kicked 4. He kicked 2 in the last quarter, which were pivotal, 1 to get us back within a kick, and then 1 to push us 10 points clear from a brilliant bit of speed, bursting inside 50, and then to kick the ball like that, running flat out, is a fair skill. Even the one he kicked in the 3rd quarter, where he hit the pack flat out and kicked that over his shoulder, running flat out, is a brilliant piece of forward craft. So gave him 1 vote for that. In the Geelong game, Jack Steele was our best player, and I think it's pretty obvious who our next captain's going to be. It's hard to see it being anyone other than him at this point, whenever that time does come. 2 votes to Vital. I thought there are a lot of guys that might have contributed the equal or even slightly more, but if you base on expectation versus output, I thought he was terrific for a first gamer in a side that was getting belted and against a really physical, strong, mature midfield. For him to have that much of the ball and use it that smartly was really good. And I gave 1 vote to Ben Long. I thought off half-back, he made a couple of mistakes early, but was pretty good. He should have won a free kick for holding the ball about 20 metres out in the third quarter that wasn't paid. He then hit the post from 50 out on the run, so he was sort of doing it at both ends, getting thrown around a little bit. Thought he worked pretty hard. I guess some unluckies in the Gold Coast game with Hunter Clark, certainly, and I think 2 of our key defenders in Wilkie and Carlisle played well in that game, and against Geelong, probably Phillips with a couple of snags was about the limit of the unluckies out of that particular game, and Billings as well. But they're the votes out of that one. Our special guest will jump down fan lane again as we jump into the cricketing space with David Hussey.
Big hit over extra cover and all the way. That is a super strike from Hussey.
That's where he's very strong, David Hussey. Square of the wicket on the offside. He hits very well over the cover field. So just enough width for him to work with there.
Well, we are taking the celebrity approach on Unplug It again today. We did catch up with a former teammate of Dave Hussey's and former captain of Dave Hussey's, in actual fact, in Darren Berry in recent weeks, to talk about his love of the Saints. And David Hussey joins us again, a man who played one of the most famous innings in one of Victoria's most famous victories under the captaincy of Darren Berry back in about 2003, 2004. But Dave Hussey hails from Western Australia, but is a passionate Sainter, and obviously been a star at Australian level, 108 appearances for Australia at one day and T20 level, and has obviously led the Melbourne Stars for a little while now. Dave, thanks for your time.
Absolute pleasure, and thanks for the introduction. Yeah, nice memories.
And now, I guess going back to that, there is a fairly strong St Kilda contingent out of Western Australia. Some fine players have heralded from that state, in George Young, who's my dad's favourite St Kilda player of all time. But how did your St Kilda orientation start? I know you did a bit of work experience with Tim Gossage, who was a big St Kilda supporter, but I imagine it started well before that.
Yeah, well before that. My father was a big St Kilda supporter, and it was before the West Coast Eagles came in the competition. And then when the West Coast came in, my brother, Mike, my father, and I used to watch the Winners all the time, every Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And yeah, we sort of barracked for the St Kilda Footy Club. And the West Coast came in, and my father sat Mike and I down and said, right, if you want to stay loyal and know your football, you're going to stick with either St Kilda, or you can change and know nothing about football and go for the West Coast. So I stayed fat and stayed loyal to St Kilda, whereas my brother, he jumped ship and supports the West Coast Eagles.
So there was never any temptation after that, after Freo came along as well? You're well ingrained by that point?
No, well ingrained. I actually love Tony Lockett, the way he went about it. And every week you sort of get on the Winners and you see him play, and just the highlights. And I think every time he got the ball delivered lace out by Nicky Winmar, who was a West Australian great. I used to love watching him play. But also, my birthday's in July, so every year I used to ask for football tickets to see St Kilda play the West Coast in Perth. And I didn't see too many wins, but it was still good fun going to Subiaco Oval watching St Kilda boys play.
Any regrets? The brothers had a fair few wins over you and seen a few flags in that time. Any regrets?
No regrets, no. No. Actually, my best mate, he's a mad St Kilda supporter too, and he still lives in Perth. So we used to go to the footy together when we were a bit older. No regrets, but when we win our next premiership, I'm definitely going to celebrate long and hard and let Mike know all about it.
Was St Kilda the dominant team in the Victorian change rooms? I imagine it was. Yourself, Darren Berry, Shane Warne, Glenn Maxwell in recent times, David Saker, I think, is a Saint as well. So there are a few of you floating around the change rooms. Yeah,
and also Shane Harwood too. He's a Ballarat boy. He's a big Saints fan, and yeah, he used to dominate the conversation. But it was more about what we needed in order to win the grand final. I remember back in the early sort of 2004, 2005 seasons, everyone used to talk about we're going to win it this year, and we fell short prelim final, and unfortunately, 9 and 10, we fell short again. But dominated the dressing room chat, the Mighty Saints.
Now, you talk about the dressing room chat and that sort of thing. Did you find footy was more a topic as a distraction when the team was going well or when it was struggling? When did it more go, okay, let's think about something else?
When the cricket was struggling or when the Saints were struggling?
With the cricket, yeah.
It was pretty much, it was consistent the whole way through. It was, basically the whole dressing room in the Victorian team thought they could play AFL footy. So, I could have made it. I could have played this. I could have played 150 games. But at the end of the day, we just can't. We're not brave enough. We don't have the skills and we don't have the athleticism that the AFL boys get on with it. But we used to have every year a team that could actually match some of the AFL teams throughout the Victorian cricketers. And unfortunately, I missed out every year. So, but the conversation would revolve around which are the best players in the AFL, and obviously we watched the game out of one eye and always put Robert Harvey in there, or Nick Riewoldt, or Justin Kazitsky in there, or Fisher in there. It was just, it's just one of those things that we used to love talking about footy and always show off our knowledge about the intricacies of the AFL game.
Who was the biggest shit talker in the locker rooms? Who was the one that thought I could have gone and played 300 games of AFL footy?
Well, there's a few. Cam White, I used to think he's pretty talented.
Oh, the bear. Pretty athletic, the big bear.
Not so much. I'll tell you what he could do is kick the ball miles. Good raking left footer. Glenn Maxwell was probably the most talented. He could kick the ball both feet, run all day. He was very good. Nick Jewell used to rate himself highly because he played that one game for Richmond, and I think he still hangs his hat on that. I think he got one possession though, and we sort of let him know about that. All the boys had sort of a little bit of talent. Like they used to kick the ball always pre-practice, post-practice, and for warm-ups and everything like that. But it's a totally different games in the AFL compared to cricket. Like you're brave, you run back into the pack to take marks. You're running up and down the field the whole game, and by the end of the game, you're absolutely spent. So whereas cricket, we play for 2 hours, have a break for 40 minutes, play for another 2 hours. So it's the two contrasting sports.
Well, I must admit, watching Brendan McCullum get hit right between the eyes by a Brett Lee bouncer in a big bash game and then face the next ball is a reasonable degree of bravery as well. But I guess on the cricket footy correlation, it's probably interesting now because footballers are probably doing what cricketers have had to do a bit, admittedly in different circumstances. Footballers in hubs away from home for a long time. Cricketers tour England or India or South Africa or whatever it may be for a long period of time. Now, admittedly, players for a couple of weeks might not have been allowed to leave their hotel, couldn't see family, which is a little bit different to that environment. But from a cricket point of view, I guess you guys can empathise that about being asked to spend a large slab of time away from friends and family.
Yeah, it's not easy, I must admit. But in saying that, it's what we signed up for as cricketers. Like we go away for 6 months of the year to follow the summer around and play the game we love. And for the footballers, they fly in, fly out, basically, and spend 2 nights away from home. The next day, they're back with their families, and they're not signed up to be away from their friends and family, and they're just having the couch to yourself, and you can watch anything on the telly and have your friends coming over and talk anything but football sort of thing. But so they're not used to it. So I do really empathise and feel for them, but also thank them because at the moment in Melbourne, it's pretty lonely and pretty boring, and seeing football on every night is, well, for me, it's a blessing in disguise. For my wife, she goes to bed very, very early because I get the telly and get to watch the footy. So, yeah, I really feel for the footballers, but thank them in the same breath.
So you obviously tried to we're into the game a bit more now. They've got all the extra games on, so no chance.
No, she's I'm an exceptionally stubborn person. I like to say determined, but she's determined not to jump on the Saints bandwagon and not to enjoy the football like I do.
So in the way of other people, I guess, as you were saying, you travelled over to England a lot. You played in the domestic cricket over there and everything. Did you take the footy over and try to introduce the field of players over there and say, oh, have a look what we're doing and try to woo a few over to the club as well, I guess?
Absolutely. It was funny. Shane Warne was playing at Hampshire when I was playing at Notts, and you play Hampshire twice a year, and every time you play Shane, he'd always have the DVDs, the old DVDs of all the games, and he'd bring 6 or 7 of the rounds and used to take them home and put them in your DVD player when you had DVD players. And used to watch all the replays of the games there. But I used to every year take a new football over and try and convince some of the boys how to kick it and handball it. And it's probably more humour value for me seeing the Poms trying to handball the Aussie rules ball. But I must admit, some of them do kick the ball quite well. Graham Swan, Ryan Sidebottom, they kick the ball quite well and quite a distance too. So I dare say there's a bit of talent floating around with the English as well.
Yeah, asked Chuck the same question or a similar question a couple of weeks ago. Do you ever try and get the cheeky colours out in the pitch?
No, but what I did do once, I went and saw Nottingham Forest play. I think it was Brighton, and my team in the EFL or English Premier League is Brighton Hove Albion. But I didn't have any Brighton stuff, but I had my St Kilda scarf with me, so I just wore that night. And people are looking at me really funny, like it's sort of not Nottingham Forest colours, but it's not Brighton colours either, and they didn't really know who I was supporting. So that's probably the only thing I really take away with me was the St Kilda scarf, and I've had it since, I reckon, early 1990s, I think.
So how's this question changes, or this situation moves every day or every week, but I guess as it stands now, the cricket summer is only a couple of months away. We've obviously got that smell in the air now of spring, which suggests usually finals footy, but we've got to wait a little while for that. But it also means the start of cricket season. So are you any clearer as to what the picture will look like for you guys, or are you expecting hub life?
I'm expecting hub life. It's a bit of a moving beast at the minute. I think CA are trying to keep us all communicated as much as we possibly can. But the BBL is due to start in December, and personally I'm hopeful that it's corona-free Melbourne at that stage, and we can go out there and play at the MCG, because that's where all the players want to play, at the home of cricket. But if that means we have to go hub life and travel all around Australia and play our home games away, as long as we're playing cricket and trying to entertain the fans and hopefully win the game of cricket, that's the bottom line, and that's what we all want to do.
So thinking of the MCG and having 100,000 people in there and that, go back, say, just as you're turning 18, 19, getting into your future, thinking ahead, would you have gone, I'd rather raise the bat, hitting a 6 on Boxing Day, or kick the winning goal after the siren in the grand final?
Oh, tough question. If I was 17 and I had a bit more courage than I did, like, say, at 20, 21, 22, I would definitely chosen St Kilda and chosen football, because I thought they got all the girls, really, and I was not really an attractive person, so I really needed all the help I can get. So I would have definitely chosen footy, but my deep love is cricket. I love playing cricket. I love playing at the MCG, and I think getting the opportunity to play in the Boxing Day Test would have been the ultimate for me. So I probably would have chosen cricket in the long run.
How do you feel watching these Saints go around?
Excited. Frustrating at times. The Fremantle game was incredibly frustrating. I had my 2 kids to look after, and they were annoying me. We were ahead by miles, and then, come on, Dad, let's do this. Come on, Dad, let's do that. No, I'm watching the Saints play. Just leave me alone, sort of thing. And then the Saints end up losing, and I was like, just infuriated. But what I like about them, they try, they have a crack week in, week out. They tackle hard. They play in a really exciting brand of footy, and it's probably the one thing I do look forward to the week is turning on the telly and seeing the Mighty Saints play, and hopefully they win. If they win, I'm very, very happy. Just seeing them play and getting out there and entertaining everybody else is a huge bonus as well.
Yeah, it's much better having football and sport around this time in lockdown, as opposed to the first time when we didn't have that. Well, Dave, thanks for joining us. As we said, you represented Australia 108 times at one-day international and T20 level, and with a first-class batting average of 53. Had you have been born in any other era than the one you're in, you probably would have played a fair bit of Test cricket as well. That's obviously not intended to rub that in, but certainly your record suggests that would have been the case. But thanks for joining us. Good luck for the summer ahead, and go Saints.
Absolutely, go Saints. Big season, I reckon. Big future.
I thought in the first half our ability to compete and especially through the midfield was really good. Contested ball plus 14, clearances were in front by 1, but the ability to score or be scored against was sort of the key factor. I think at one point they had 13 inside 50s for 10 shots, and we couldn't score the other end, and by half time it was 25 inside 50s to 18, but there's still roughly 2 and a bit goals of difference. So we did some things right. We tried to sort of change the mix a little bit in the second half, but we then, an area that was good in our game really turned to not a great result around the ball and their dominance in the third quarter through stoppages.
We look towards Essendon on Sunday. We do have another game also locked in the fixture. We'll go to Alice Springs and play Melbourne in round 14. Now, that's a bit of a home away from home for the D's. They play a few games in the top end each year, so they'll have a little bit more experience there than we will. But good to see other parts of Australia, I guess. They're travelling everywhere like everyone is at the moment. But the Saints have never played a game in the Northern Territory for premiership points, so they'll tick that one off the list as well. I think they were going to anyway. I think they were originally scheduled to play the Gold Coast in Darwin in the first fixture. But they'll now go to the Alice Springs into the Red Centre and take on the D's. But first up, it's Essendon. There's Brisbane after that at the Gabba. I don't think we know exactly when that game's being played in terms of time and day. We may know that, but I'll double check. But Essendon this week, 3 changes flagged in the press conference were that Ryder, Ross and Jones would be available to play. Jones logical. Ross, you would think, after 3 weeks out, and Ryder, it's probably the outs are the key. I imagine that, Jay Gresham's the obvious one who goes out. As much as we've all discussed that Ed Phillips played well, I get the feeling he'll still get dropped, unfortunately, for one of those midfielders. The other one where it's tough, so I'm going Phillips and Gresham out for Ross and Jones. But then what do we do about getting Ryder back into the side? Essendon are fairly tall, so do we leave out a Dean Kent or something like that and put Ryder back in? Because they'll have young Draper, who's a handy young ruckman, and Bellchambers and these sorts of guys. But certainly an area we might be able to get on top with the two of them. So, the third change is probably a little harder to find.
There's a few. The other one I think is Loney as well. Missed a weekend, come back with fresh legs. We're up against a team coming off 4 days. Fresh legs is going to be really important, and he's got that pace and kind of dynamic ability inside the forward half. So Kent could be an out. Loney could come back. Phillips, it's unlucky. 16 touches and 2 goals, and you get dropped. That's very rough. But if you had to choose between him and Bytel, who do you pick? It's a tough one, but I just want to see Bytel play more. Yeah. But I guess if you're bringing in Jones and Ross, do you then have too many kind of similar inside players to do it? And does that kind of mean that Phillips gets a reprieve and Bytel does have to miss again? I don't. It's going to be a really tough one.
Before too, Phillips against the Gold Coast.
Yeah,
nothing wrong in that game either.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you move Phillips back to a halfback flank and Long misses. I don't know. Phillips, the one thing that Phillips really impressed me with against the Gold Coast was his ability to kind of stand up in contest. There was one in particular with Ben King in the goal square that he really held his own in a defensive capacity and really held off King until reinforcements arrived. There was a long kick into the goal square and Phillips went one-on-one with King and contested really hard and brought the ball to ground and really stopped King from kicking a goal. And so that could be an option to move Phillips back to a halfback flank or back pocket or something to keep him in the side, and maybe someone like a Geary goes out and misses a week, or Long again, although he's fresh legs, missed 3 weeks, and you'd expect him to stay in, but there's a lot of question marks around this week's selection table.
Yeah, you think speed may be a bit of a key for this week. It's a day game. It's going to be dry. Essendon are a reasonably quick side, but hoping that they might fall to the same problem that we had last week with the heavy legs and that we might be able to use that pace to run around them. So a smaller side may be how the team goes in this week. Phillips has that speed and line-breaking ability, so to be missing out a game where he could be a key player it would be quite tough. The 2 ruckmen, I don't know whether we go in with the 2 or do we just concentrate on having Marshall by himself and try and win the ball out of the middle a bit more than what we did last week. It's Yeah, I'd be thinking that pace is probably our way to be looking at this game.
The other question, speaking about the ruck one, is do we give Marshall a rest? He's had a big block of games. Do we give Marshall a rest, especially if we're bringing the likes of Ross and Jones back in and maybe keeping Bytel? And we've got a ball-winning midfield. Do we bring in Ryder to go one out as a tap ruckman and really trust our mids to go and win the hard ball?
Possibly. I really like the idea of having, I don't know, that may well be the case in terms of the fresh legs, but I think with obviously Max relatively late in his first season, with Essendon, they rested Hurley last week, the Bombers, so on Wednesday, so they'll play him this week. And Cale Hooker, I think, was touch and go. They said he'd obviously missed the Gold Coast game and would be a chance to come back against us. So I don't mind the idea, and I think one of the main assets when we have Ryder and Marshall in the team is that when Ryder's rucking, Marshall can play out of the forward line and give us another target. So that certainly does help in that regard, especially with those two guys that could intercept Mark, maybe down in their defensive end. So that's the challenge in that regard as to sort of how they want to play it. The other one's Geary, who I understand why he played forward at times this year, and he's done a good job, particularly on Doherty earlier on in the season and a couple of other times. But I just wonder whether that's a permanent move or not. He's been playing forward basically in the side all the time. I still wonder whether his best position is in the defensive end, playing on somebody like a McDonald, Tippenwoody or a player of that ilk. I'm not sure that Jaron Geary is a permanent forward for the Saints. Now, I know that the defensive setup with Clark, Patton and Caulfield as smalls has been pretty good, and Ben Long can do that as well. And Wilkie can play on mediums too, so he might have been squeezed out of that end, but I just don't know if Jaron Geary is a permanent forward.
Well, the only player I look at thinking that he would have that sort of role against this week would be Sard, but I don't think he's quick enough. I don't think he's quick enough for Sard. That's one problem.
No, not at all.
Sard's the sort of player you got to kind of get in front of and make him kick.
Make him accountable for you, basically.
Yeah, we don't want you. Basically, if he's running out in front of his player that should be on him, then he's not going to be catching him. You kind of play between their goal and him with, and to try to stop the run out, make him kick the ball to a target, because that's kind of where he struggles a little bit at times. And you're looking into their forward line. I guess McDonald to be winning, I guess, would be the key matchup for Geary if he's down there. Dev Smith, maybe. It's just he kind of plays a bit more up the ground quite often as well. So it's someone that he'd be having to follow up the ground, I guess. It's but then you look into the middle. Does Steele look more at Merritt or Shield? That's one question I'll be looking at.
I think McDonald Tippenwoody would make the most sense for Geary, because Geary has the defensive craft to manage McDonald Tippenwoody, but also the strength, upper body strength. McDonald Tippenwoody is really strong, and Geary has the ability to line up on him, I think, pretty well. But yeah, it might be kind of the perfect week to give him a spell. The Steele one's an interesting one. I feel like I want to see him go head to head with Dylan Shield. Former teammates as well, and just let them go head to head. And I trust Jack Steele implicitly now to both, quiet their best midfielder, but also go and win his own ball. I think Merritt is probably a bit more damaging when he's got the ball than Shield is. I think Shield's probably a better ball winner, but I think Merritt's more damaging with the ball. I feel like if Steele goes to Merritt, then he'll be sacrificing a fair bit of his offensive ability to quiet Merritt. I don't rate Dylan Shield at Essendon as much as I did at GWS, because he doesn't have the same class around him as he did at GWS to cover up some of the skill errors and decision-making flaws that he has in his game. So I'm quite happy to kind of let Steele go head-to-head with Shield and just try and make Shield accountable for him at the same time. And, maybe someone else can run with Merritt and quieten him.
Yeah, you kind of look at last week. Shield only had 4 touches less than what Merritt did, but Merritt had almost 200 metres more metres gained. So it just shows he gives them the ground a bit more than what Sheila is actually doing. Yeah, so he moves the ball a lot better. So he's one that we're definitely going to have to watch, I think.
And Adam McGrath, since going into the middle for them, middle of last year, has been really influential around the ball for them. We know he sort of started off half-back, but he can play that role for them too. So that's obviously why we want most hands on deck through the middle of the ground. And I hopefully don't get howled down for this, because hopefully people understand where I'm coming from. Jack Steele's clearly not Lenny Hayes and won't be Lenny Hayes. I don't think anyone would be that type of player, but I get the feeling that Jack Steele sort of at the moment represents that type of role, if that makes sense. So Lenny Hayes was the go-to inspirational figure in the team. And whilst, again, I stress Jack Steele is not Lenny Hayes, I think he's playing that type of role on our side now as the inspirational figurehead. Lenny Hayes was captain of the club for a while, but for most of his career, Nick Rewalt was captain. So Jack Steele's not captain of St Kilda at the moment. And it's taking nothing away from Jaron Geary, but Jack Steele might as well also be captain, I think, the way he's playing at present. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I agree. You sort of just trust that he'll get the job done wherever he does happen to go at this point. But
given his form this year, does it concern you that he wasn't voted into the leadership group at the start of the season?
A little bit, because as I said, I reckon he would be the captain. If Jaron Geary I know Seb Ross is the vice captain, but if Jaron Geary retired at whatever points, then Jack Steele would be the logical choice to captain the group, you would think.
Based on pure footballing ability and footballing consistency, it'd have to be. I mean, I'm not sure you could pick anyone over Jack Steele at the moment to be the next captain. But it is a little concerning, because I think he showed some of those same attributes last season in terms of his on-field leadership and ability to be that guy in terms of the one who stands up when things are going the other way. He's the one. He's the man that you look to in the middle. You'd love it to be Seb Ross, but it's not. And I think he's kind of shown that. He has certain abilities, Seb, but he's that kind of on-field jump on my back and I'll pull you along. That's not one of his kind of specialties. Whereas Jack Steele looks like that's one of his things. When the tide's turning, he'll go win the hard ball and he'll burst out of a pack. He'll kick it long. He'll kick a goal. Take a strong mark. He'll do whatever it takes, really. And I find it really hard to believe that he's not our best on-field leader. And for me, I wonder what is it that kind of stopped him from being in the leadership group this year, because I think if he was in the leadership group, then there's nothing stopping him from being the next captain next year. Whereas now you kind of look at it and go, well, if he's not even in the leadership group, can he stand up to being the captain next season?
Well, the one thing we don't know is, has he gone to the other players and say, look, I don't want to be part of it?
Well,
and
potentially,
basically said, don't vote for me. I don't want to have that on me, and is the sort of player that goes, my football is going to lead, not the name of a captain. There's plenty of players out there who over the years should have been a captain but never were, and plenty of players that haven't been the best player in the team who have been the captain. Their leadership is better than their football, and a lot of players, their football is better than their leadership. So there's a bit of a fine line there. You don't want to, I guess, if he doesn't want that sitting on top of him and doesn't want it to, I guess, affect him, and he's able to just concentrate on what he's doing out in the field, then that's what we'd prefer.
The good thing is that I guess, as opposed to previous years, when Rewalt was captain, it was kind of like, for a period you had Goddard and you had some other guys that were ready to step up if Rewalt retired at any point. But there was a period where you kind of went late in his career. Shit, when he goes, who's next in line? And Geary was the guy, but you've got guys like Hunter Clark and Nick Caulfield now that kind of look to have that leadership ability, and they're not quite there yet. I'm not saying that they're ready to be captain next week if it came to it, or next season, or even 2 years from now. But guys like that look like they're putting their heads over the ball. They look like they're ready to step up in terms of taking on more responsibility within the team. Caulfield's one that's really impressed me in that regard this season. He was one that I had big concerns over in that regard before this season, but everything he's done on field and the way that he directs traffic from half back, he's really impressed me. And it doesn't look like we have that void of developing leaders anymore.
I was just thinking, if he's still quite young, is Zach Jones a contender?
Probably. I think he might be in the leadership group, I think. But lifelong St Kilda supporter, loves the club. Certainly provides that grunt in the middle, fires the boys up when he kicks goals. You'll see him, roar and punch fists and grab the shield and all of that sort of stuff. So certainly think he could be an option. I guess my final thought before we wrap things up is that someone who is in the leadership group, I'm fairly certain, who, if we had to pick somebody to be BOG this week, it wouldn't be a bad time for Bradley Hill to get that gone, I would think, in a game. Thought he was all right against the Suns and thought he was all right against the Swans. It was non-existent against Geelong. Now, I know a lot of players were, but hopefully, because if he's BOG, you're probably going to win games based on his skill set. So hopefully he can produce close to his best over this last 6 games. But fingers crossed for the Bombers on Sunday before obviously the really tough task after that as well of Brisbane at the Gabba.
Which will be at the same time as the game this week. So Sunday 3:35. Yep.
6-day break, then a 7-day break, the luxury.